a meeting of the Affordable Housing Committee. We're meeting in the Old Town Hall conference room, as well as via Zoom. Today is Wednesday, May 10th, 2023. Time now is 7:03 p.m. And for the record, we have in the room Herb, Steve, Bob Howanger from the public, Gretchen Gertler, our secretary, myself, Mark Barnhart. We also have online Heather, Quinn, and Nina Velez. And with that, I'll turn things over to you, acting chair, I guess, for any remarks.
Okay. Still Herb.
Herb.
So I think the first order of business is always to review the minutes of the prior meeting. So this will be the minutes of the April 19th.
Thank you, Gretchen.
As always, thank you, Gretchen.
Any corrections on it?
So I have one that I don't think it's terribly significant, but I think under the affordable housing plan, it's actually Steve who shared the worksheet. Steve, wasn't it your worksheet? So Steve did all the setup work on the 12-town comparison. I don't want to make a big deal about it, but just give Steve credit. I think
okay.
he did that work.
Should I put that in there?
Steve doesn't care, it's okay. Thank you.
All right.
No worries.
I didn't go back and look.
We're all fine. I just wanted to
Give credit where
give credit where credit is.
I will just note that I had asked about the reaction of the neighbors on Berkeley Road about the height of the building, and
got your answer.
yeah, got me. Yeah. Yep.
Anything else on the minutes? Nina, Heather, Gwen?
Looks good to me.
Motion to approve?
Second?
I second it.
Everyone in favor?
Yep.
Great.
Aye.
Excellent. So next item would be the discussion of the affordable housing plan. So if we could take a look at the tracking sheet, and remember there are five targets, 5 strategies that we're really focusing on right now. So that would be 1, 3, 7, 11, and 13. And that's where you see some red text where we made some, at least minor adjustments to the next steps and target dates and so forth. So I think one of the big ones we wanted to talk about really was the inclusionary zoning, Steve. So you want to walk us through that?
You're talking about the spreadsheet in the towns?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So I forget who selected which town.
So I'm gonna come out and say that I haven't.
I didn't get that.
I mean, it was, you have to, Heather has to jump. Okay, I see that. Nina, you were breaking up. We didn't get you.
I'm on the train, so there's my
On the train, she said.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So Herb, you did.
Did you have one of these?
Hopefully you can hear
that.
There should be
2 pages here? Yeah, good.
And Bob, you might have the latest, but I'll just give you that and that one for you too, Gretchen.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, we'll send this around so everyone has it after the meeting.
And the folks that are online, did just get a copy, email copy of it. So Steve, we had, I guess, everyone had volunteered to do one of the towns,
Yeah.
and Bob also agreed to do one, so.
Yeah, just a second. Nina.
And you've indicated that.
Nina had Greenwich, is that right?
On the train though, she
Yeah.
may have a hard time.
Yeah, no, I'm making my notes because I forgot my page here. So, I took Westport, Herb took Darien, Bob raised his hand for Milford.
Yeah.
Nina was Greenwich, Gwen was Shelton, and I forget who,
So Gwen was actually initially Reading, and she also took Shelton for Joanne
Right.
as well.
Oh.
Gwen's actually covering
two.
Reading and Shelton.
Okay, good,
Yep.
okay. And there were a series of questions, that we were looking at. I myself didn't quite follow it the way that, I laid it out, but, you know, what was the regulation, the purpose, density, incentive? When was the ordinance passed? The percentage affordable, income levels targeted, was it townwide? Incentives given, and has the regulation produced any units? I can say for Westport, I had actually looked at every reg I could find in their zoning regulations that involved affordable housing, but it really came down that there were only two that were meaningful. One was inclusionary two-family and multifamily dwellings, and one was an inclusionary housing overlay district. I found that even though they might have had 12 different regulations, they didn't really produce very much within the regulations. And also I found it odd that they were only, that only 4 830Gs were done in Westport, where you would think that they would have even a stronger base to go off of than Fairfield. You know, we've had almost 20 proposed here, something like that,
At least.
you know?
Yep.
And so they've had 4 that were, or maybe 5 that were developed, but the 2 in particular, the inclusionary two-family, multifamily was tagged at 20% affordable. And they, interesting enough, they would tag it at a percentage affordable, and not just the units, but also the square footage in the building, which I think is a good thing. You know, you don't want the affordable to be smaller. And then they would give you a density based on bedrooms per acre and units per acre. But in this one particular section, the inclusionary two-family and multifamily, you got a 30% bonus in bedrooms if you did affordable. You went from 20 to 26, but it didn't change the number of units. 18 units you were stuck with. I really think that if you looked at their regulations carefully, a lot of it was project by project spot zoning. And this one in particular, where they talk about if the lot is a prior septic, well, we'll read it. vacant septic tank company land on the post road. Well, there's only one, you know, that was pretty direct.
So that just doesn't happen in Fairfield, it happens in Westport too.
Yeah. And I know the guy who did the development, one of the biggest developers in Westport. The other overlay, was again at 20% of the units, 20% of the, floor area. Again, maximum of 20 bedrooms, you get a 6% bump if it's affordable, but still 18 units per acre. They also applied it to assisted living units. I don't know if anything has been built under it, but it was interesting that they were trying. They had only one zoning regulation that allowed a fee in lieu of, and that was housing in a residency district. But I don't believe that there's been anything done. No, I'm sorry, they did one. There was one small unit that was, or small development that was funded by another development. But I liked what they did with the fee in lieu of, is you were supposed to do 15% affordable. But if you wanted to do off-site housing, it went to 17%. And so you would have to do at least 5% on-site, and you could do 12% off-site. But they increased the amount that had to be affordable if you were going to do some off-site. And the fee in lieu was tagged to the median income for the SMSA. And if you did the math, you got to $250,000 a unit that would have to be paid, which is not bad compared to the other towns I'd looked at over the years, you know. But
We were proposing 300.
yeah, that's, you know, it's costing, I think, more than 300 today.
We were 300 at the time and it went up, so.
Yeah, you know, so they're doing better, but I was curious as to why they were hitting the low mark. But so that's where I am at so far. The system planning director did get back to me today. And I didn't see a whole lot in her answers that were different than what I just mentioned. So that's Westport.
So the $250,000, that's the buyout for, that's the fee in lieu.
Fee in lieu of, yeah,
The fee in lieu of,
yeah,
of what?
Producing a unit within that zone,
yeah.
eligible.
So in other words, if you have 10 units, one unit would be affordable, the buyout is $250,000?
Not one, be two, I believe. It's 20%.
Oh, 20%, 20%, so,
And it only applies to the one zone.
right, residency, yeah.
Well, 17.5%. So, but again, it comes to 250, and it then increase when the SMSA median income for a family of four increases. And almost all of their affordable housing was set at 80%. And there were a few that were, only a couple that were less than 80, you know, at 60, and one was, I think, at 50. But Mark just said, you know, 250 is not enough, really. Yeah.
Okay, Bob, you want to talk about Milford?
Yeah, Milford has 25% affordable, and it applies to one district in particular, open space affordable housing development, multifamily district. And there is no opt-out ability that I saw in the regs, so there's no fee in lieu of. And when I took a look at their current, affordable housing plan, it was interesting to note that the percent of deed restricted units has actually declined over the past 5 years. They went from 87 to 74, and that's only 6% of their total assisted, population, about 1,200, 2,000 units. So I'm surmising 1,200 is total assisted. So my guess is that 25% is just not generating much building.
I can't imagine anyone able to make
Right.
anything.
I mean, to your point, so,
25%.
yeah.
Yeah, I think even in this environment, even 15%. That's the reality is it changes as, you know, we were in a very low interest rate
Right.
environment for many years and low cost. Banks were pretty much giving away money. You know, so a lot of projects could happen. They asked for more. Now, things are different.
Can I just interject before you go on, Bob, that, in Westport, they had other incentives besides the number of units, that
Yeah.
they would give more coverage,
Yeah.
or they would give less parking that was required. So,
Yeah, so
And those help.
there's a balancing act in terms of reducing the developer's other costs to offset the
yeah,
burden of
Yeah.
creating more.
I thought, I've heard that Westport was at 15%. Like, I've heard references to the fact that Westport, you know, they're proud to say they're 15%.
well, they've got like 15 regs that.
Sounds like it's all over the place.
Yes, but a lot of it's at 20.
Gotcha. So that's it for motion.
Gwen, do you want to walk us through Shelton?
Hi, sure. Okay, so let me just pull up my information, one moment. Okay, so for Shelton, inclusionary zoning was passed 2 years ago. It's townwide, however, specific to areas that provide sewer, water, transportation, et cetera. The incentives include low taxes, lenient density regulations, lower parking ratios. Developers can't back out, however, they won't be approved. And the number of constructed housing units produced by inclusionary zoning are about 40 to 50 over the past 1.5 to 2 years. And currently they have 15 to 20 inclusionary units being built. And that's the information that I gathered. I'm still working on gathering more.
Were they providing, any kind of tax credits or tax abatements to incentivize this, or is that the impression you got, or was that low taxes?
It's just low taxes is, yes, essentially low taxes. That was the wording that I received. But I'll have to dig a little deeper.
Yeah, you did send some stuff via Jim, which I'll share with, the whole group here.
Okay,
Maybe some more color to it.
that'd be great.
Okay, great. So with, and Gwen, while we're talking, so tell us what you learned about, Reading.
Sure. So Reading actually does not have exclusionary zoning policy at all. They don't have developers building. They have incentive housing in Georgetown and on Route 7 corridor overlay zone. So the vast majority of who qualify for affordable housing use like the federal and state low interest mortgage programs. And after speaking with Irv, we decided that Reading probably wasn't a great comparison for Fairfield.
Thanks for checking.
Of course.
And just, by the way, I had spoken to Reading, I don't know, 10 years ago, about their ADUs. And,
Is it Reading or Richfield? Oh, it was Richfield.
Richfield. Never mind. Okay. Never mind.
One of those are towns.
Yeah.
So when, in Darien, they have two areas where they really focus their, inclusionary zoning. And these are generally along the post road, so transit, basically downtown and transit area, is where they're focusing it. In terms of incentives, it was mentioned of a minimum apartment size, well, I guess more the reduced parking requirements for multifamily, dwellings. They do have a buyout option, and, but I haven't figured this out. It's listed as $29 per gross square foot. That doesn't sound like a very large
No, it costs
amount.
over $300, maybe $500 a square foot.
So I haven't been able to talk with the point person in Darien yet. I'll be able to do that this week. So I've got to get confirmation on that and some stuff.
Yeah, I would not be surprised that, how much was it you said,
$29. Actually, it varies depending upon location, but the larger number was $29 per square
Yeah.
foot within the central.
So for like, 750 square foot apartment, that's $20,000. And so if you're not really serious, stick it in there and then you can say you're doing something, but.
It just doesn't seem to hold water, so.
No.
So I need to follow up and confirm that.
Maybe they're thinking of it like equivalent to like taxing something dollars a square foot, that's excessive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
On a tax rate, but
Mhm.
to actually replace a unit,
They haven't done a lot in Darien, have they? They're, 4%? Well,
That should be 4%, right, or?
yeah.
14%.
I'm reading .04.
well, it's probably 4.08.
They have as many housing units? No, that was population, never mind.
So they don't have a percent affordable.
No, it's,
Oh.
yeah, the 041 is, I think it's probably 4.18.
Gotcha.
We dropped that number in. But they have a, 14% is their target, is their requirement.
Oh, okay.
For inclusionary.
Let's see that.
I need to fix this up.
Gotcha. It's an interesting number.
So we have, a few others we want to add to that. I think Janice is looking at one. Janice, you're looking at Stratford, I think?
Hi guys. Yes, I had Stratford, but okay, I'm so sorry. I need a couple of more days. If it's okay, I'd like to email
Yeah.
you all the information. I
Yep.
apologize. It's been a rough
No
month,
worries.
but I will send it on the email to everybody.
Cool, good. And then, Janice, we'll add that in the spreadsheet, so we can pause any kind of updates until you can get something into us.
Okay.
And, and maybe some of the others, that have assignments will also be.
Okay, I'm sorry.
This is a work in progress.
Yeah,
Right.
it's gonna be a while before we get this fine tuned, but.
Okay.
We thought this was to get started and start, sharing the information. So, are there
All right.
any other towns? No worries. Are there any other towns that we think might be worth going after?
Well, I had two ideas. One is that we might ask Glenn if he could recommend some towns that we look at, because, he sees more of the state than we do. Secondly, should we be asking Jim and Emmeline if they have things that they would like to know about these communities? And do they have 5 questions that we should be also researching? That might be the same as our 5, but maybe not.
Well, I can certainly, I can certainly reach out to Jim and Emily and share with them work to date and see if they have any suggestions, either in terms of communities that we should talk to, or, questions that they have regarding our methodology or for this topic as a whole. Bethel was often mentioned, even we are, but I know we're talking to places like Marianne and Westport that are also small, suburban towns, but Bethel also mentioned is, in fact, they also, I think that's where upper inclusionary zoning provision that deals, had initially put it into their regs. So, different, and I'm not, this analysis is helpful, but it's not the be-all, end-all either. It's understand the lay of the land, what other communities are doing in the case, and we see anything that helpful and may be adaptable to what we're doing here that can, but at least we know, we can answer the question. Do we look at what are other communities doing, so we have that information? May not be all that apropos of what we want to do here, so.
So,
And if you want to talk to Glenn,
yeah, I will. I
That
will
would be
talk to
great.
Glenn.
I will
So-
make a note to myself, but.
As you
Mark,
and I,
we might wait a few days.
Yeah.
Janice,
Yeah, I think we'll wait until we have this a little bit more refined, but.
And, you know, any of us who want to further refine the ones that we've done, it gives us a chance to do that. So maybe, when we do have 5 weeks before we meet again, as opposed to 3 this time.
yeah.
So, maybe that'll give us a little bit of extra time, but I think we can probably take, you know, a better part of a week before we turn anything over to them.
And Mark, when you talk to Jim and Emmeline, you know, there are, as you and I just mentioned earlier, that there are certain incentives that Westport gives with coverage and setbacks and parking that I don't think we can do. It's really difficult to look at those parts of the regulations, I think. It's easy to pick out percentages.
Well, the thought has occurred to me, and rather than, I'm direct. I mean, if the issue is create affordable housing, you have to subsidize it one way or the other. You're either subsidizing it by allowing the developer to recoup the loss through additional market rate units that he can then produce an income to offset the revenue loss from or below market rate units. You can also subsidize it directly through governmental support. And so the simple thing that I thought of is, you know, we have a baseline that we require developers to adhere to certain inclusionary zoning provisions. And that they're able to still make deals work or projects happen based on the fact that they have the market rate units that offset the cost of producing the below market. If we wanted to go beyond that, one simple solution might be just either we're providing some additional governmental support to offset that directly, you know, federal, state dollars, even local dollars, that we can buy the units essentially, or we can reduce their costs perhaps through some kind of tax abatement or similar to those, you know, things that you're talking about. But it seems to me that's a fairly straightforward, simple, it's math, you know? It's, you can calculate what the delta is between a market rate unit and what a below market rate unit is, gross income. And you could offset the loss in that below market, for that below market rate unit through some other source. And, you know, if we wanted to get more units, maybe the simple solution to this is either deploy additional dollars to offset that cost, or give them a tax break of some sort, or provide some other,
Mhm.
benefit that would reduce his costs somehow. So, that seems like a better way, you know, then we can maybe get, instead of 12% or 15%, maybe get 20%. Maybe we can even get, units that are more deeply affordable.
Mhm.
Which, so we can do the, I've done the calculations to know how much it costs on a per unit basis based on the type of unit and the income between a market rate. And I've actually done a recent market survey, rent survey, to look at what units are out there and what rents are being charged. So I think we can calculate that pretty easily, and that might be one solution to this.
So can you give us an idea of what the difference is between affordable and market?
Yeah, I'll send it, I could send it out, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
And again, it's, so you're looking at it, again, we wanted a 40-year restriction, so you calculate over a 40-year basis.
Mhm.
And, you know, we're talking big numbers over 40 years. That, we got into this conversation, so we talked about, you know, can we assist that one developer through accessing some brownfield dollars to offset the cost of cleaning up the site in exchange for getting a higher percentage of affordable. Even with the $3 million infusion, if the state were so gracious enough to provide that, it may not, still may not. In fact, I know it will not offset the cost over 40 years
Mhm.
for the below market rate unit.
So I just did a quick calculation. It's not quite the way maybe everybody does it, but if there was $1,000 difference between market and affordable, that's $12,000 a year the developer's giving up. And if you cap that at 6%, that's a value of $200,000. Now that's, if you're doing 10 of those units, the developer's looking at that and saying, holy mackerel, you know?
Looking at it.
Yeah.
So, but, you know, there actually is provision in both state statutes and local ordinance that allows the town
Mhm.
to enter into an agreement with the developer to offset that cost,
Mhm.
cost associated with producing the below market rate unit through some credit or rebate.
And now,
So it's a one.
floating a town bond might make sense, because developers are gonna be paying 6%, 7%, 5.5%.
Yeah, you could, but the issue with that is, because you could argue that the town can borrow money cheaper than they can get it elsewhere. The
Yeah.
problem is that, and I've went through this with the Navy housing site,
Mhm.
not necessarily a tax exempt use. In fact, it probably isn't a tax exempt use. So there's a different provision of the
Like
code.
affordable housing is not.
Affordable housing, but you're doing it to assist the for-profit developers. You're acting as a commercial lender, essentially. I don't know, you can access the same mechanism to do it. You know, bond counsel
You gotta
asks a
call
lot of
Austin Wolf.
questions with regard to
Austin Wolf will
apartment
find a
housing.
way.
So, bottom line, yes, theoretically, you could do that. And in fact, the conversation I've had with the Housing Development Fund, for a community lender, is that they can provide financing to these projects at a lower cost than a commercial lender. So that's worth something, right? If we can deploy that in exchange for getting more affordable units, there's a benefit associated, a value associated with that. So I'm looking at, you can couple all these things together, and could we get more units in a development that has already been approved, and just go to the developer and say, hey, instead of giving us 10 units, can we get 15? We know it's gonna be an extra cost, but we're gonna offset that cost to you. That might be the easiest, and cheapest way in the long run to get to our numbers
Yeah.
sooner.
And you don't have to offset all the costs, because
You have a certain number, that's the floor. The floor is, you have to produce 10, 12%, whatever it is, right?
but they are also, they wanna build, because they're gonna make a profit. And so, instead of making a 20% profit, they might make an 18% profit. So you don't have to subsidize
wait.
that too much.
No, yeah.
Sorry.
So
So
this is
when you,
just-
sorry to like butt in, but so
when you're doing that, and I hope that you guys can hear me, when you're doing that, are you like, is it, you're saying then like, okay, build another 5 units or 15 units, whatever it may be. Like, for how long would those affordable housing units be? Like, would they be kind of sort of in a different way deed restricted, or like, how would we
Yeah.
ensure that those would be affordable housing units for the long term and not just, yes, I'm gonna build them affordable housing because you're giving me this, and now a year or 5 years later, I'm gonna make them regular rent, whatever.
You'd have to have a deed restriction, associated with those units and an agreement. It's, what, I was looking at the 1838 Black Rock Turnpike where, the town entered into an agreement with the developer of that mixed-use project, like 26, units in there of ground floor retail. And in exchange for providing some land out the back that the town owns, which we then leased to that owner, on a 40-year lease, he has to provide, 6 units of affordable. So he needs the additional land to provide parking for his development.
Mhm.
And so the town was able to get something in exchange for that. And it's a 40-year term on the lease and a 40-year renewable. So in essence, it could be in perpetuity, so long as they need the land that they're leasing from the town for $1 to satisfy parking requirements, we get the 6 units affordable. So you could set something up that essentially you get these benefits so long as it remains affordable, and then have a minimum term of 40 years, because we need the 40 years in order to get to the moratorium. So,
Yeah.
and just thoughts as I'm looking through these things, I'm always trying to think about, how can we get to the core of the issue and what we're trying to solve in a simple way. But
The 40-year thing.
it's not that simple, but.
We should really look at that again, but, so Westport had a provision that if the units were ever going to become non-affordable, that the town would have the first right,
Yeah, yep, we
Um,
talked about that too.
And there was also on town-owned land, if that was used to develop, it could never be non-affordable.
Mhm.
It would be affordable in perpetuity. So like in, the senior project, Greenfield Commons, is that what it's called?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that's probably affordable for 40 years, my guess.
Well,
Oh, but
again,
but,
that's perpetuity in
Yeah, 'cause
essence,
a
because
lease.
the town owns the land.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
we're ground lease. So, that's a good way in which the town can maintain control
yeah,
by ground leasing it to somebody
Mm.
for $1, but in
Mhm.
exchange for, basically permanent affordability.
yep, yep.
So I'll hold off on talking to Tim and Emmeline until we find our.
I think a week
Yep.
would be plenty. So
And are we getting copies of the regs or citations? We can make copies of the regs. I probably wanna
I got
have
it. You want a copy?
some of those, you did.
I'm not sure if we all did, but we should make that as a goal, I think.
Or we don't have to make copies, we could just reference as in
Yeah.
section of the
Yeah,
code,
exactly,
as long as we can find it.
exactly. So what do we think? Maybe a week? Let's,
It's up to you.
so what does everybody think? Suppose we encouraged everyone to finish work to the extent possible when they're assigned town, and, get that information into us,
Week from Monday?
for Monday?
Yeah. I have a busy week next week,
Okay,
so.
fair enough. And some of this really requires talking with talking with the town.
Yeah.
The specific town department
Mhm.
heads, or staff, so we'll go for Monday, a week.
22nd.
Yeah, and then, so we'll ask everyone to do what they can to get their information into us, by the 22nd. Should we have them send that information to Steve? Mark?
Well, why not to all of us?
That's good. Let's send it to each other.
Yeah.
And they'll have a chance to learn from each other. And so we'll set that as the target, May 22nd. And then Mark will be in a position to, we'll pull it all together, and Mark will be in a position to go to Jim and Emmeline to their ideas.
But are you gonna speak to Jim and Emmeline before the 22nd?
No. Hold off, so I'll hold off.
Well,
I talk to Jim and Emmeline all the time.
no, I think if you want to talk conceptually, I think that's good, but just in terms of sharing this information, we don't want to look like idiots if we haven't finished
Okay.
fine tuning our individual research. So, of course, you can talk to them conceptually. There's no gag order that applies.
Thank you. I wouldn't observe it anyway.
Okay, so should we move on? So the next one would be number 3, I think. Did we say 3? So, we have several things going on here. I think we can move through this pretty quickly. Diocese of Bridgeport, contacting them. The water, the town properties, Steve, we talked about 32 Still Meadow.
Yeah.
I reached out to Emmeline, she wasn't very encouraging. But Steve and I decided we're still gonna make it, so what we need to do is to find out who basically is the
decider who controls the land?
yeah, who in the town controls the land, so we still need to do that. I'll try to see if she can put us in touch with somebody.
Mhm.
And Mark, I don't know if there's anything to pursue at this point with the diocese.
Or originally, I know you have me down, but I know, the first select woman had indicated that she wanted out to,
Okay.
so, you know, I will
Hmm.
refer to her. I mean, I'm happy to reach out to my contacts there and talk to this individual that you provided as well. Also indicated that she talk about, and
We're basically waiting on that then. As far as the large retail parking lots, we really haven't done much since the last meeting. I have put together, well, so Mark provided me some lots, and I went and looked at other large lots, and we have a spreadsheet with these. And, I think what we maybe want to do is to look at it to see if we got it all there.
sure.
So,
I will say, you know, several members of the Economic Development Commission are also interested in the same, might be an opportunity to work collectively on this. You know, they see it as an opportunity perhaps to make more productive use out of what is, you know, asphalt parking right now that's not needed. So, you know, again, it might be.
that's good. When do they meet again?
They meet, the first Thursday of each month. I think you guys are a little further ahead in terms of assigning work to individual members and having projects, but several have reached out to me, and I've mentioned that the Affordable Housing Committee is looking at the same thing, continue to work.
But if it makes sense, we could try to swing by for that meeting, if it would be helpful to advance the ball a little bit.
Okay. I mean, ultimately, it has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission, so we just need a rationale behind it, but I think to propose some change, it would be helpful to have, you know, more groups advocating for it.
Okay, I think that's pretty much it for number 3. Number 7 is the middle housing. again, just briefly, we had done this study earlier on our own of potential for modification of zoning regulations that we might recommend. And we noted that there were quite a few Zone B lots that were duplexes that were in fact undersized, non-conforming currently. And looking at a number of those lots of that size, and also looking at lots slightly larger, it seemed that there was really potential to do something and create more duplex potential and potential affordable. The direction that's really coming from the consultants and then ultimately through planning and zoning is that they'd like to go a bit more slowly on this. And I think that came up again at a last minute conflict, but I think that came up again at the April POCD meeting, where it was sort of presented, I think, at one of the stations. So I don't know that there's a lot that we can really do at this point. It doesn't look like, I tried to quantify what the impact was of these Zone A to Zone C and Zone B to Zone C suggestions. And we're not really talking about that many units, and actually quite a few of those units already have duplexes on them. So I'm not sure there's much we can do right now, other than sort of sit tight. Do you feel that?
I don't disagree. I think, again, this is something that, Planning and Zoning Commission is looking for the POCD update, and I think, of course, I don't think there'd be an appetite to short circuit that process.
Then number 11, guidelines for the Housing Trust Fund. And so here,
There's a couple things mixed in here.
yeah, maybe we have this.
There was a conversation about, be advantageous for the commission to establish a 501c3
Right.
for purposes of securing donations to the Housing Trust Fund. Arlene Batista suggests that, somebody, part of the pro bono working group that can provide legal services to groups. I mean, that's part of the cost. There's another cost associated with actually filing the paperwork. But I think even before that, I know that's kind of on me, there needs to be a conversation, I think, with, an attorney and the first selectwoman to make sure that, as an organization, entity of the town, it would be okay for us to establish a separate 501c3 nonprofit corporation purpose. And I don't know what the ramifications are. I just want to make sure that we're not,
Well, what happens when somebody donates land for open space?
I think it's accepted by the town. There's a process to do that. So that when the town accepts land, it has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission under 824, RTM ultimately for the acceptance of the parcel of land. There is a clearly defined process for that. When you accept, the town can accept monetary donations, and, arguably, tax account in the IRS as to whether or not there's a tax write-off associated with it, but I think everyone here thought it'd be more straightforward if, people are very familiar with, I gave money to a 501c3 and I got a tax deduction for it. That was the thinking behind it. I don't know how to do that. I know the mechanics of it, it just, it's a little odd to have an entity of the town establishing a parallel 501c3 corporation. think it can be done.
Mm.
So what pitfalls are out there?
Should look up something like Cars for Kids to see what they do.
Well, it's very clear, I mean, organization, you could go out tomorrow, Steve, and create your own nonprofit corporation, but you're not an entity of the town, right? So an entity of the town, like the Affordable Housing Committee, is a body of the town of Fairfield. So that now we're creating a 501c3. So I don't know if that's been done. I'm sure it has been done somewhere. I just don't know.
Mhm.
Makes sense to me. I don't know if it's a high priority for us. I mean, it would be nice to have that. But I think we can also just ask people to give us land and money right now.
Exactly,
Mhm.
and we should.
And, that was number 13, which is, can we, have some materials ready, like, if you're considering your estate.
Sorry, me again. So is every town, supposed to have a affordable housing committee like we do? Is that like something that's in the
Right.
legislature,
Well,
like
they're supposed to have an affordable housing plan, but they don't have to have an affordable housing
plan,
committee.
but not a committee? Okay. Because then I was wondering, like, could there be a way for us to look up, mind you, and I'm like so bad at doing my homework, but would there be a way for us to look up if other towns have a 403? No, I'm like confusing all my numbers.
501c3? Yeah.
501c3 thing? Like, how can we look? I mean, I'm sure that there's like a slew of like 501c organizations out there, but like,
I mean,
is there a way for us to?
I suppose you could probably, maybe it's as simple as Googling 501c3 corps affordable housing and see what comes up, and,
I can ask
Yeah.
Glenn to,
Because the one in Stanford just got awarded like, I don't know, like a thing in Stanford just got awarded like $3.7 million. Like,
yeah, that's a lending
that's
entity.
Housing Development Fund,
oh, it's a lending? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's.
So, yeah, I mean, I know there are groups out there that are 501c3s that are in this realm, they're doing this work. There are land trusts, for example, that are established as 501c3s, and they get monetary and donations of land, but they're not, I don't know if they're separate, like the Aspetuck Land Trust, but are they an entity of the town? That's where
I don't think so.
so like,
Yeah, like, can we look that up if it's an entity of the town? Because then we can replicate that and be able to.
Excuse me, Nina, but Mark, can't you contact your fellow directors of community and economic development and just ask them?
suppose I could, there is a listserv, or I can ask Emmeline to put it on a listserv for, planners and see if anyone knows of anything, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
I have you.
Is there anything else that we want to be?
See, we have like great ideas and then you have me who just asks questions.
No, good question.
The questions are very important.
So Nina and Mark, is there anything else that we want to be doing now in this strategy?
I think ultimately, and we haven't really gotten together, but I think ultimately the committee should establish some general guidelines, for our work. What projects we want, what are our priorities? And I think we have general
Well-
ideas about it, maybe we just have to formalize those a little bit. And I don't think there's any rush to it, I think there is some benefit to just going about the work, and it'll probably inform where we end up,
I thought like we had some set things that we were going to focus on, right? Even though we had this giant plan of the things, we had like a couple of ones that we wanted to focus on.
Yes,
Yeah.
there's no question
Yeah.
about that, yep.
And it was 5, right?
So, yes, something doable, right? So it's kind of like SMART goals. If you have way too many goals, you're probably not going to achieve them. But if you have some realistic goals and you start chipping away at them, we could reach all the goals that we have set for ourselves. But I think that we need to be a little bit more focused and a little bit more
We have.
intentional.
Yeah, we have 5 we've been talking about at every meeting and we aren't really working actively on all 5 right now. There are probably 3 that we're really working actively on. So, but I think we all agree we need to maintain some focus. But just getting that trust fund, populated and in dollars, is a good thing, and whatever we can do is great, and if we, but at some point, we'll need criteria in terms of how we're going to use it. More formalized criteria in terms of how we're going to use it.
Yeah, I think that's what Nina's saying, which is maybe that's a high priority right now. We've got other things that we want to focus on. If I understood you correctly.
Okay, so we'll jump down to the last one, which is our education and outreach. And I guess Greenfield Street is going and moving along well, and we've got other opportunities that we can publicize. One of which Bob's amenable to do presentational materials for us, and I think we were talking about probably early fall as a target.
Mm-hmm.
Bob, I've got a deck that I use for the affordable housing plan. I can just share with you and
Oh, good.
take some of that.
Yeah, I think we're also thinking of, some sort of leave behind, either a flyer
Yeah.
with a tear off and or a trifold with a perforated, column for people to express interest, laying out the various ways they could contribute to the fund, a little bit about the fund, in some, eye-catching graphics that, create some interest and point them to, if they want more information, who to contact and that sort of thing. So probably at least those 2 pieces, as well as something similar to a, presentation that you have.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. Me again. And I might have missed it when you guys talked about it, and I'm not sure, because again, the train. But I'm wondering, have you guys talked about the Habitat for Humanity project? How is that going, and when is the groundbreaking thing or breaking ground thing happening?
We didn't get there yet. I will,
Sorry, I'm skipping, sorry.
Oh, no.
We're on that target right now. It's number 13.
Would you like me to jump ahead?
Sure.
So, I talked to, the Director of Development for Habitat today. They have all their, building plans, they have their drainage calculations and report. Everything's ready. He was in the process this afternoon of submitting it online through our building permit, online building permit application process. I will check tomorrow morning to see if it's in the queue and make sure that departments are reviewing it and providing approvals. Our thought in terms of the groundbreaking was we wanted to schedule that after we did some initial site work to clear a space. There's a big slab right there. We pulled out, and he said, "Don't worry about it. We'll leave that slab, and I'll take care of it when we site." And then to have the building permit already in hand, so we're ready to start work. As soon as those 2 things happen, then I think we're ready to have a groundbreaking. And I know the first selectwoman's excited to do that. Carolyn Vermont from Habitat is excited to do that. So I think we're probably in the next 30 days. Looks like a good time for us to do that. I was hoping to do it before the end of May.
Awesome. Okay.
So, yeah, we're getting there. It's not, I wish it were moving a little faster. I've been pestering,
Same.
pestering for getting the building permit application in. Some of it was us, because, it took a while for us to assign addresses, believe it or not. I had to go through
Wow.
the engineering department, the assessor's office to get, and then the post office to get new addresses assigned. Now it's 240 to 246 Greenfield Street is the address of the property.
All right, cool. All right.
Who knew?
So we
Actually,
will,
though,
so we will be
separate.
building in the middle of summer. That's gonna be like
We will be building in the
so
middle of summer, yeah.
fun.
Yeah. Well, I think there'll be probably some work that they have to do, the professionals have to do first. But then, so maybe it'll be more early fall,
Yeah.
but,
Okay, you can sign me up for that. That's fine.
me too.
Is there, coal ash in the dirt?
We sure hope not.
Yeah?
No, there shouldn't be. There's,
Oh, so now you're jinxing it.
yeah, Steve's
That's
coming
not
up with
nice.
environmental issues. We have to
Yeah.
deal with. We didn't find any, as we're pulling the other things out, so,
Yeah.
but.
Good.
So that, yeah, so Greenfield Street's moving ahead. I'll keep on top of them and
Good.
keep you guys posted.
Okay, great. Okay, so I think this is the update. Took us a little longer than we may thought it might take, but this is at the heart of what we're really doing right now. Absolutely. That's all good. So we can move on, I guess, to old business. Mark, you wanna do this?
Yeah, the only, so there's 3 projects currently underway, in town. I think you've probably, some of you have probably seen them. I will say that I was just up on, and saw the progress on 26 Beacon Square. I don't know if anyone's driven past that, but that really, it's big,
Yeah?
yeah. Yeah.
Wait, that's the one off of, Black Rock?
Yeah, it's off of Black Rock, off of Candlewood, and it's near Pine Tree.
Yeah.
Isn't that something?
But the one, there's a single family, cape that's next to this, and it's living in perpetual
Yeah.
shade right now, so. But it's, it's an 830G,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of number of units, it's not huge, but again, it's just on a small lot, so it really does look, maybe it'll be better when it's finished, but right now, it's not great.
There was another one up near there, Bloomfield, I think it was.
Yeah, that's better.
And that I thought was gonna look bad, but,
It came out better,
yeah.
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 So we'll see, maybe when they're done, it'll look better.
Yeah.
It's pretty much framed out. The one on Black Rock Turnpike is also, framed out, enclosed, so they're doing, writing on that. I mean, all these projects, the one on Park Avenue too, these are the 3 projects that are in construction. I don't see any of them, really being CO'd, before early next year. So it really isn't changing our timing in terms of potential application for a moratorium, but, all 3 are well underway and on track for, and, I believe everyone probably saw the Patch article, or maybe was at the meeting or public hearing on Berkeley. But that, was, continued until the following, second meeting in May. There's still an opportunity to provide comments on that. That's it for 830G. And I did provide the, updated tracking sheet. I brought copies today.
Yeah.
But it's essentially the information I emailed out to the committees. I think everyone has it.
How much money do we have?
The Housing Trust Fund
Yeah.
has a current balance of $859,318. $859,318. of which we reserved 350 for Parkview Commons, leaving an adjusted balance of $509,318 uncommitted.
And how much is owed to it from Parkview? Is it Parkview? What do you, Navy Housing?
Well, we've committed, 1 maybe around 1.2
Mhm.
for the acquisition of properties at Parkview.
Yeah,
I suspect even if we do a 3-for-1 replacement there,
mhm.
that we'll have to provide the land. You know, maybe we do it as a ground lease, but we'll provide the land as a subsidy, in order for those units to be affordable.
So money would not be coming back into.
No, unless we increase the number of units, which I don't think would go over as well with the neighborhood.
This is what development, I'm sorry,
This is Parkview.
Parkview Commons.
So we were, you know, again, if we think about, I mean, maybe you can get some money back, but again, looking at just and Greenfield's a pretty good example. Building those 4 duplexes, the hard construction cost is more than revenue to be gained from the sale of the units to keep them affordable. So you throw land into the equation, it's even worse.
And since the, money is already committed, rather than trying to get some back, maybe you do a little deeper subsidy if it comes to that.
Well, I think that's the idea. I mean, if the idea was hopefully doing ownership units, and I really like the Habitat model because they're providing the mortgage financing,
Mhm.
internally, and able to then provide homeownership opportunities to people at 60% AMI, which is almost unheard of.
Mhm.
So it really is providing a great opportunity to build some equity, for people that otherwise would be shut out of the local market. And the idea would be,
Right, how do they build equity?
well, the old-fashioned way, which is you buy a unit,
Mhm.
And over time, as you pay down the note, you build equity in the property when you go to sell it. It's not, you're getting a huge, increase in the value of the property that you sell it for.
But you've reduced
Twice
the
as-
debt.
Right,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably, there's gotta be some little upside on it, but, it's gonna have to be capped to some degree in order for it to be affordable long-term. Nobody else can afford it.
Yeah. And what is the interest rate on their loans?
I think they're providing no interest. Can't do better than that.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's good, that's good.
Yeah, it's, I don't know anyone else that's doing it like
Mhm.
this. Again, you're talking about sale prices that, are unheard of, and
And it's gonna be a brand-new unit.
it will be a brand new unit, and the nice thing too is, they'll have to provide some of their own sweat equity, that's part of the model too. We don't have to, and there are other providers out there that do affordable home ownership,
Mhm.
just 60% AMI for ownership is, 0% financing on a note is
I think it's
pretty
great.
impressive, yeah.
And they get Fairfield schools and Fairfield beaches
Yep.
and.
So, that's where we are on the trust fund. I will say that, we do have a sale date for the unit that was in foreclosure, is in foreclosure,
Mhm.
and, court has ordered a sale date of August 5th.
Is the bank talking to you?
It's all being run out of the court system,
Yeah.
so it's a national bank, and they have turned it over to the folks, and
Mhm.
you can't get a hold of anyone to short circuit the process. So it might actually be easier to just process play out.
You're gonna go and,
Yeah, I'm gonna get my deposit and paddle up, I guess, and buy the house for us. And then, you know, we have two holdover tenants, both of which are on month to month. One informed me that, she hopes to relocate on or about September 1st.
Mhm.
And the other one, I think we just have to let her know when. That's where we are in Parkview, and, you know, I think we can probably put together, I have an RFQ ready, for development partners. I've gotten inquiries from several besides Habitat, Housing Development Fund, housing partners, all have expressed interest in working. So we'll put it out for RFQ, with the 5 lots and see what, have any other thoughts. I think we'll probably suggest that we're looking at a duplex, triplex type arrangement, because we wanna try to be in character with the surrounding neighborhood, and we're gonna have to raise the first floor elevation anyway to comply with, flood requirements there. So,
How many contiguous lots?
we'll have 3 with,
3
one
and then
that's
2
proposed,
across?
and then 2, that are separated by a unit. So maybe it's a combination of doing,
Hmm.
the lots they're 9,000 square foot lots, but they're really, you know, it's pretty tight, so maybe there's a combination of doing some duplexes and some triplexes. Some are, you know, the ones on the left side are really deep. Maybe that works better if we can parcels together. So, that's what I
You've
think
talked
we're-
to the neighbors. Have you tried to incentivize the neighbors to sell you their house so that you'd have?
Well, there are 2 other lots, next to the 3, that could potentially go. One has expressed interest and probably would sell us his lot. Unfortunately, the one in between is not as anxious to go. So, you know, I don't wanna spend all of our good money here either, so, you know, maybe it's, kind of holding the other one gentleman off a little bit.
But if,
If it fell into place, yeah, I think, yeah, we could.
for the guy who doesn't want to sell,
Mhm.
could you give him the house next door, the guy who does want to sell, so then you would at least be able to attach the lots?
Yeah, I don't know if you really wanna move, ask.
You know?
Yeah, so I think partly too, as if we move ahead, I mean, this is gonna take a little bit of time, 'cause
Yeah.
to identify our development partner and then go through the process of having them approve and then putting together plans, and, my thought is, as that developing, you know, maybe that,
Yeah.
encourages other people to think about it.
And even if it doesn't happen in time, you could design the first 3 lots so that the next 2 could be easily designed to fit in, or?
I think we wanna tell any developer that we're working with that the intent here is to encompass additional lots. So
Yeah.
it we should be able to phase it or sequence it. Yeah.
And we've already talked about the other items.
Yep.
Yep.
And then someone in new business,
Oh, I did include here, and I know Herb, you were in attendance, thank you, at our May 3rd, public hearing. If, we, are finishing up our public process to make a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen and RTM for how we're gonna allocate federal community development block grant dollars for next year. Unfortunately, we'll see less of them than current year, about a $20,000 decline. And, you know, so it hasn't changed. We've been able to try to insulate many of our nonprofit partners
Mhm.
from that impact, but, you know, will obviously impact some of our work, so about $80,000 would go towards, you know, like Operation Hope and Fairfield, Museum, Asmurin Park and LifeBridge and organizations like that to provide services to the local community. And then, about 250 for housing activities, which funds our single-family rehab, multifamily rehab, ownership assistance programs,
Mhm.
and, all to cover just program administration costs and development needs with sidewalk and street income eligible. So this will go to the board probably in June, and be hopefully approved by the RTM in June. Anyone needs would like a copy of it, I have,
You have more than one?
I do, and I can, also email this out.
All of the money that the feds had pumped out over the last couple of years, none of it came through community development block grants. It all,
No, it's, all that's through, well, there was some additional dollars that came through, CDBG coronavirus funds, but the big dollars that a lot of Connecticut communities, including Fairfield, received was under the ARPA, American Rescue Plan Act.
Yeah.
So, those dollars did not come through.
is the town eligible for employee retention credit grants or
Not
refunds?
that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
Should be, though.
Because you didn't lay
We
anybody
didn't
off?
lay anyone off.
Yeah.
And we all had to work here and.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Operation Hope, have they got their new home yet?
So, I'm glad you asked that. 488, Tunxus, the town garage on Tunxus Hill, which is, before the General Assembly, for revisions to the special act by which the town took possession of the property back, probably 30, 40 years ago. There was a reversionary clause that said if we don't use it for a garage, it goes back to the state. And so last legislative session, we changed that to allow for the town to either sell or lease it for economic development or housing purposes, with the understanding that any proceeds from the sale or lease would go to the state. And the idea was just to make better use of the site. So it's a very tiny parcel. Building is in very poor condition. But when we said that we were interested in potentially leasing it to a community nonprofit like Operation Hope, the state said, well, that doesn't fall within economic development or housing purposes. But, you need to revise the act again. So we have proposed amendment, bill, which is at a public hearing this week. Brenda and I and representative 20 people submitted testimony in support of it. I talked to DOT already, and they were in support. So we just simply added the language that we could, a community nonprofit, also an acceptable use of the site. Hopefully then it will be approved before the General Assembly adjourns, signed into law, and then go through the process of hopefully conveying it or leasing it to Operation Hope. The issue for Operation Hope is that it's too small in and of itself without some adjoining property. So they were in discussions with one of the other abutting property owners, and he was playing hardball, I guess, for lack of a better word.
The insurance guy?
Yeah, and, asked for, and I think they had an agreement for a lot of, more than the value of the property. They were willing to do it, and then he kind of got cold feet. So what's interesting is the Episcopal Church owns a property next door and has apparently plans to divest itself of this property at some point, at least entertaining other solutions for it. So we did call the Episcopal Church and, both Carla and myself, and indicated, interested. If for nothing else, we'd be interested in leasing the parking lot, because they have a parking lot behind it, which would be perfect. And it would be perfect if they were planning to use it as a church, no problem. But the new bishop is in discernment for quite a length of time, so we're told that he can't get back to us until
And he's in what?
fall.
Discernment.
They call it discernment.
Discernment.
He's,
What is it?
Discernment.
I know, but what is it?
well, I guess he's reflecting upon his.
Well, like a sabbatical or something?
No, he's been appointed, so he's taking time.
It's reflecting, it's reflecting.
It's
Period reflection.
Period reflection.
Oh, okay.
Intense and somewhat prolonged reflection.
I'm gonna set it better. In any event, they said, thank you, we appreciate your interest, but we can't get back to you, right now,
Yeah.
maybe sometime this.
Do the lot lines adjoin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Out the back.
Yeah.
So, it's moving ahead as only a process through the Connecticut General Assembly, can.
My recollection of the property, the stone church, which is very pretty and.
It's actually historical.
Yeah, is it?
It's on the historical. It's,
But the back of it is like kind of crappy, is my
kind
right?
of crappy is right,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so you could keep the stone and get rid of the crap, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, it is moving,
Yeah.
rather slowly.
Well, speaking of Operation Hope, there's a number of permanent supportive housing stuff,
Yep,
and the deeds have been changed.
no, they have not.
Oh. Okay. You're working on that?
I am.
Yeah.
I have, this has been, ongoing discussion with the, town attorney.
Mhm.
Board approved a housing agreement some time ago, conditioned upon these deed restrictions being in place, and neither the housing agreement nor the deed restrictions have been fully executed. And, I've brought this up to all kinds of people, but, it is on my list. Because we will need the document eventually.
I mean, it seems to me that if it doesn't get signed beforehand, it gets signed before the property on Tungus is conveyed, because they're all gonna be in the same room with a pen.
Yeah, and I don't know, I might have to write this up, I guess, but.
And then Berkeley Road, is there anything?
No, just the hearing is open, so if anyone has any comments on it, I expect it will conclude.
Mhm.
Didn't sound like there was, much evidence in the way of a public health safety issue that would rise to the level of.
When you spoke with them, was there any reason why they weren't willing to talk about alternatives? And
Well, yeah, I think we just need to figure out a better process. There's so many groups here involved that it's tough to have a substantive conversation about this. Yeah, I heard, comment made, would be better if we were just to lop off a story of the building, but again, what is the mechanism by which they could approve that? The Planning and Zoning Commission could approve that. They'd have to approve it as an 830G. Obviously, it would not pencil out the same way that a 40 unit, 30 units, not gonna pencil out like a 40 unit. There's certain fixed costs. So, yeah, there's a way to solve that, but there's no comprehensive plan to address this.
They're doing 12 affordable now.
Yep.
At 20%, it would be, 8 affordable. And at,
But we don't have a provision in our regulations that will allow them to approve a 20%.
every developer that comes in writes their own regulation, right?
So, you know, that would be, but I think, you know, developers, 830G inoculates them to some degree, provides them some assurance that,
Mhm.
you know, that it'll withstand scrutiny on appeal. Regular regulation not afford the same action, if you will. So, I don't know, if I was a developer, it's hard, to accept that, but I think somehow we have to solve that problem at some point. We need to give ourselves more tools, come up with something that would be better for the neighborhood, for the community as a whole, but while still providing some affordable units along the way.
If I was thinking
We
about
have more flexibility.
developing, you know, I would want a party like you that is willing to talk, the town government willing to talk, and some assurance that the neighbors aren't gonna sue me for the next 15 years. And as you said, 830G does inoculate against a lot of stuff. But it comes at a cost, right? So, you would think there'd be a way. You would think, so.
Maybe so, I mean, are you thinking some process whereby?
Oh, we've talked
come in
about,
and-
yeah.
There'd be a conversation, there'd
I don't
be-
know, it's hard, because you can't really have those conversations planning and zoning committee. You can have an informal, but it's all in public session, so I don't know how you do that. You have to provide a provision in our regs that allows, we've talked about that, you know, is there something like a provision whereby somebody can do less affordable, but more density than what's currently allowed, and maybe you have some middle ground.
Mhm.
But isn't that what's going on right now?
But it doesn't solve the 830G.
Isn't that what's going on right now down at BJ's? The big unit down at BJ's?
Well, they're proposing a text amendment, but that's within the context of, well, actually, it was approved last night. But that's within the context of a transit-oriented development overlay zone. You know, that, they don't have to avail themselves of 830G because, you know, that works, even based on, you know, paying $2 million an acre for the land.
Mhm.
That, but we don't want that, and it's okay around there, but I don't think we want that on Berkeley. Beacon Square, or some of these other properties we've talked about, Black Rock Turnpike even.
No, I just meant the process in terms of just having the conversation, presenting what you have in mind, basically getting feedback from planning and zoning and,
Yeah,
before you actually formally propose something.
yeah, there are gonna be, I think, there are some opportunities here. It takes two to tango. So I think there is gonna be some, projects coming in that we've tried to steer them away from an 830G application. And we think that, you know, there might be an opportunity to create something that's in between. See if it works. You know, what you find here, unlike other parts of the country, sometimes, maybe you're newer, you have, Fairfield particularly, you have commercial zones, and then you have single-family residential zones right next to it. You don't have like a soft transition between the two. Usually there's some transitory zone between, you know, a single-family home and a commercial district. And so I think there are some limited opportunities to come up with something in between, but it would require some.
Just to add a couple of things that I found in Westport that were interesting in their regs. One is that they had caps, so they have certain programs you can do, but you can only do one in town, or only 2 developments in town, or only 100 units in town.
Interesting.
But throughout almost all of the regulations, there's language like this, that the design must protect neighborhood property values and preserve and improve the appearance and beauty of the town. We don't have that in our town,
Well, we either have an 830G, in which case that doesn't matter, or
Yeah.
we have, something else.
Yeah. But we don't have
Rarely
design
we
review
have
that
something
way.
else, so.
We don't have a kind of, architectural design review. We have,
We have a center design district, which
Yeah.
includes architectural standards, and so does
good.
the transit-oriented development overlay zone.
Mhm.
Not as strong as I would like, I
Yeah.
think they should be strengthened.
Yeah.
And, so then it oftentimes gets very subjective. But I do think my experience with talking to developers is that they're more than willing to consider those things if you can give them some direction up front, so they're not spending a lot of time going back and doing 3 different.
I agree,
And wasn't FHI hinting at that in that presentation, that they?
They did, and even in our affordable housing plan, we talked about creating a design guidebook too, so, I think all those things would be really helpful. And developers would, I think, welcome it, because it helps get them through the process quicker.
yeah.
It's less expensive.
When a project gets approved, do they sue the developer or do they sue the town?
Who,
Planning and zoning.
somebody on appeal?
The neighbors, if they don't like it?
They would appeal both, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the developer and the town stand side by side in the appeal, working together,
Not I don't know if our interests are completely aligned,
Yeah.
but,
assurances, that being able to say, all right, if I do this, I'll get that. And if you can give them those assurances,
that's why I do think that, planning is an important function. The more we can get, permission to engage the public neighborhoods, to develop a robust plan,
Mhm.
that we can then share with developers, say, this is, that's very helpful.
We all set? Any other business for the committee?
Yes, Gwen?
Win, Janice?
Nope.
Janice?
Is there a
Nope.
motion to adjourn?
Oh, wait, and you make the announcement, Bob is going before the,
Well, yeah, I think, did that go out to the whole, I saw it.
I saw it, yeah.
I don't think it went to the whole committee.
You're going before the board on Monday?
Monday.
Yeah,
So Bob has thrown his hat in the ring to be appointed to the Affordable Housing Committee, and the board will consider his, nomination
Right.
on Monday. And then I think what we need to do is obviously have, another election, I guess, to
Yeah.
appoint,
yep,
permanent chair, so.
yeah.
We'll put that on the next agenda.
And I do have the deck you used to onboard, I think, last year, new members of the committee.
I do.
I saved it.
Good,
Yep.
excellent.
Good luck, Bob.
Thank you.
Yeah, all right,
I just would like to mention the book I sent to you, because I've heard this guy
Oh, the
interviewed
parking?
a couple of times.
yep,
Called Paradise. Henry Grabar, Grabar. It's been released today. It is, from what I've heard of him, I've heard him twice on NPR, quite an expose of the parking situation, how it's affected the lack of affordable housing, how it's been used as a tool in a lot of ways. It's really
Yeah.
sounds very interesting.
This was a book?
It is a book
A
that,
book
yeah.
that, Mr. Gravois has written.
yeah.
Okay.
Today is the release day. There are more parking spaces than there are one-bedroom.
Mark, is your oldest a junior?
Among other things.
The oldest is graduating in,
So she's already gone through the agony of
Well,
applying,
you talked about
applying
number
to
of
college.
communities and where
Yeah.
neighbors have
And we've
been
gone
able
through the
to
agony
oppose
of,
affordable housing because,
which college she's gonna go to.
and they use the
And
parking.
has she made the
And
decision?
it's
Oh,
just
sure.
every
Yeah.
community in
She'll be
this country
attending
has
McGill
parking
University
regulations
in
that are way
Montreal.
over.
Ah.
Yes.
Excellent
And
school,
as
I've
for the
been
cost.
told. And does she speak
So it
French?
makes affordable housing,
Oh, and she'll have a good time.
so
Yeah, you're
They
right.
teach in English, but.
put a hold on
she
it or
really
something. I
wanted
think
to
every member of
study
the
in a
PSC should
urban
have
cosmopolitan
we need to change the
city.
parking
Yeah.
And she was interested
in
in studying
in all towns, but
overseas.
Mm-hmm.
that's,
So
Yeah.
we
we keep talking
suggested
about that.
Canada gives her that
Yeah.
environment
Easier said than
without
done.
being so far away.
Yeah.
Did
But-
we, did
So
we
my
adjourn?
son
Yeah.
had a friend who went to McGill,
well, actually,
Yeah.
Brian Torst's son.
Yeah.
Do you know Brian? He's the head of music or
I'll
was?
make a motion.
He was the head of
Good night.
music
Thank you all.
at Fairview U. And he was in Sparrow Shore, I think.